So this video is geared more towards installers and shops because I'm going to go through the problems with the Axxess Axxess A2B2 interface for the 21-22 Ford Bronco B&O system. So it may be really boring for some people to watch. This also isn't a bash fest against Axxess, but there is a certain level of frustration that is involved because I have lost 2 days of my life dealing with features and things that should have worked and they don't. So there is a certain amount of frustration that I am going to be relaying in the video. It's not to say anything about the company as a whole, but I think they have a serious R&D problem with their DSP interfaces. Now the interface that I used was the Axxess A2B2. And the reason I went with this over the Pack Amp Pro, which the Pack Amp Pros are what I normally use on most vehicles here at the shop. They just always seem to work, and I just like the way that they plug in and they're simplistic and everything's fine. I use the Axxess piece because the B&O system has a center channel, and the Pack Amp Pro only has front, rear, and sub outputs, and I did not want to have to deal with losing that channel. So since this has a DSP and you can program number 6 output in the RCA to be center, I thought this would be a great choice. Now if you read everything on here, which I'm not going to go through it, but it basically says it retains everything, and it also says that it comes with the amp bypass. So includes amplifier bypass harness. That right there is problem number 1. The bypass harness they're referring to is this right here, this gray plug. So you unplug this black plug from the factory B&O amplifier. And if you can see, it has that guide there. Now you can see I've shaved the guide down, but originally the guide was full. The reason it's shaved down is if you try to plug this plug into the Metra plug, hold on, doing this one-handed, so you have to give me a break. It will not plug in because, as you can see, the guide does not match up with where Axxess's groove is. It's off to the side a little bit. So that was a problem I ran into. Not a good problem to have because I was afraid it wouldn't work. Called tech support, tell them what's going on. They didn't understand what I was talking about, took pictures, circled the problem, and they basically didn't have an answer for me. So I said, okay, well, I guess I'll disconnect the battery, slice this guide down, plug it in, and start toning to make sure everything's there. Because this is their bypass. Right here's the speaker outputs. So you're supposed to be able to tap into this side and hit all your speakers, front, rear, and center, and the subwoofer, right? So I shave that down, plug that in. But that's problem number 1. Now, why is that a problem? There are actually 2 B&O systems. There's the B&O Standard and there's the B&O Unleashed. The B&O Unleashed was put out on the F-150s. It has 18 speakers in the headrest. It's insane. They use the same B&O Unleashed plugs in some of the Broncos. That is the B&O Unleashed plug. That is why it's offset just a little bit and doesn't match. Again, these are the things though where I would expect a company to know this and to make their plugs accept both of them. All they would have to do is the mold would just need to have a little bit more space and it could have accepted both and nobody would ever be the wiser. But that is why that plug doesn't fit. So if you get one in your shop and the plugs don't plug together, it's fine, but it's not, I'll tell you why. But that's why the plugs don't match. So you can shave off that guide and plug it in. The big issue that started though is once I plugged in that plug, I went to tone the speakers, basically to verify that each speaker was correct, that the plug was correct. I wanted to make sure that that plug was correct for this car before I hook up a battery or anything, because I didn't want to short anything out because there is a set of data wires in there. The speaker wires are listed as front left, front right, rear left, rear right, center, and subwoofer. So toning, front left is the front dash. Rear left is the front kick panel. Front right is the front right dash. Rear right is the front right kick panel. So there's no rears. Center channel did nothing. And subwoofer obviously did the sub, but the sub's unplugged, so it doesn't really matter. So I had no rears and no centers, which to me seemed odd since it's labeled on the harness that that's what those were supposed to be. So that threw a red flag to where I was like, uh-oh, this may not be correct. So I called tech support back to explain to them that these aren't toning correct, and I want to make sure that this is going to work with this vehicle. After 2 hours on the phone with them, no answers. Nobody really had a solution, so I decided to do some digging myself. I found some other shops online that had done Broncos, and I kept finding little tidbits of information until I pieced it all together that up here is the audio control module. So if you have standard audio, this is where we plug in, and this is where we put in the interface to give you a system in a Bronco. With the B&O system, you would expect everything to be at the B&O amplifier. It's not. The center channel and the rears all run through the audio control module still up here. So your speaker wires for the rears and the center are nowhere in the back. They're all right here, just like where you would hit on a standard audio system. So I went and pulled the wiring schematics for this vehicle. Basically, anytime you see audio control module, that is the box right there below the screen. Anytime you see audio digital signal processing module, that is the B&O amplifier. Right here you can clearly see that the right rear, the left rear, and the center all come from the audio control module right to the speakers. They never interface with the B&O amplifier. This down here is the B&O amplifier, and you can see left kick panel, right kick panel, subwoofer, subwoofer, left mid tweet, right mid tweet. So these are those kicks, these are the dash, these are the subs, no rears, no centers are here. So how do you make it so that all of the speakers are going to work without having to run wire all through this Bronco? And also, why was this not part of this device's instructions? Nowhere in here does it say it. Nowhere in here does it show you anything. It shows you a diagram. There's that plug that doesn't really work, plugging in. There's a little black plug back there at the amp plugging in. And there's your box, and there's the A to B little USB. And that's it. No information. It just says, yeah, there's your speaker wires. So you can follow those. And look, yep, everything's there. You can grab it all. So that's where I started getting really pissy, because I had to find out this information, and now I had to figure out how to make it work. So to make it work, you have to run speaker wire from your new amps in the back up to the front and hit the output, the speaker leads going to the center and the rears from the audio control module. Cutting into a new car harness, not really something I'm into. I happen to have this, and this is what I use when I do high level systems. So this is the PAC LPH FD31. This is a T harness that will plug in right there at the audio control module, and then it gives you outputs to go high level into audio control amplifiers or anything like that. This is what I use to do the job, but you do not use those outputs. Remember, those are outputs. So you snip off all those, and then in between the plug where the speaker leads are, that's where you're going to cut them, and then you're going to tag the side that's feeding away from the audio control module, because that's going to the speakers. But the colors will not match. So you have to look at the plug and figure out what's what. It's weird. I'm pretty positive it was white was center, and the purple and green represented the rears. So you just have to make sure that you tone them though to verify that you're on the right ones, because remember, the PAC piece is thinking you're doing a standard audio system, so it's got, you know, front left, front right, and rears. It doesn't have anything to do with center channel. It wasn't made for that. But I verified it does work. See, it even says non-amplified Ford vehicles, but this does work. It's in there right now. I have everything playing. But you have to have some kind of T-harness so that you can grab the centers and the rears. You do not want to hack or tap into the factory wiring. That is amateur hour, and it's not really what you need to do on a new vehicle. And up here's the control module. That black plug right there, that's the packed T-harness I was talking about. So I'm plugged into the factory plug there, then my T-harness loops around, and it plugs back into the box right there. So you're gonna have to run speaker wire. So these are things that I wasn't aware of because I based everything off of the interface working. So this is all items that I lost money on. So this is why I'm trying to tell people, because if you're a shop, I lost 2 days worth of labor, which 2 days worth of labor is a lot of money. And I lost materials because I didn't quote for any of this speaker wire, the speed wire I had to run up here. I didn't quote for any of this labor up here. I didn't quote for that T-harness I had to use. So that's all loss. I eat all that. And when you add that up plus the time, we're into thousands of dollars I lost because I was told that something worked and it doesn't. So you have to go from, your amps up to there, wherever your amps are, you're gonna go up to there. And then you should have it set up to where it'll work, but you're still not gonna work. So the first thing you gotta do is you'll plug in the interface, but do not hook up the remote turn on for the amplifiers, which it says that in the instructions. The reason for that is the DSP, you need to connect to it with the Bluetooth app, and you need to connect, or to the DSP app, you need to connect to it through Bluetooth, and you need to tell it what vehicle it's in. Now, I had multiple texts tell me that this doesn't matter and it doesn't care, blah. It does. It made a huge difference. So you have to put Ford Bronco, and then there's an option to put with or without OE amp. I was told by like 2 texts that didn't matter. It matters, because if you put without OE amp, you have no volume control. The DSP does not do anything on a digital level. Once I flash it to with OE amp, it does have, and everything works. So watch out for that. Other issue is the box was very outdated. I plugged it in, it had 3.0 on it. It updated to 3.2, but it gave me a corrupted update. So at 3.0, there were a couple things on the radio that just weren't working right. Apparently that was corrected with the update, but when I did the update, it was corrupted. So then when I put it back in the vehicle, nothing worked. So I spent a good hour trying to figure out why I just lost everything that I'd gained. And I plugged it back in, come find out that it had a corrupted update and I had to redo everything. Once I did that, told it what kind of vehicle it was, put it in, then you can hook up your remote turn on to turn on the amplifiers, and you can start setting up your sound stage, which is what I was doing. That is when I noticed the other big issue with that interface. So I'm not really sure what the F-150 and the Raptor are doing, but if you see right here in their instructions, it says that the F-150 and the Raptor, I'm trying to get it to where it'll focus, channel 6 must be assigned as a center channel, which obviously there's something going on in the digital path that they have to do that. But it says F-150 and for the F-150 Raptor. I went ahead and made channel 6 center too, just because I was like, hey, I can make any channel whatever I want. I might as well go ahead and do the same thing. I did that. I turned on, I assigned all the channels. I turned everything on. Every speaker was working except the center. I had no output from the center channel. If I reassigned that channel and just named it like left front tweeter, I had audio, which tells me my RCAs were correct, my wiring was correct, everything was working, but the DSP is not receiving any center channel information from the vehicle to decode it out of the DSP, which, if you remember, is the only reason I used this product. I would have used an Amp Pro if I would have known that the center channel wasn't going to work. Called tech support, about an hour and a half, 2 hours with them on the phone, and it boiled down to they didn't know. They said they have no idea. They had me change it to F-150. They had me change it to all kinds of different settings, and it just boiled down to it just doesn't work. We even went to channels 9 and 10, which I wasn't using. 9 and 10, turn them to center, nothing. It's not the channel 6 thing. It won't do center channel on anything. As soon as you assign center to a channel, it's dead. So they said that basically the interface is not getting center channel information, which again was the only reason I used the part. So last night I had to do a big workaround because I'm not gonna put it as like a front left. It would be weird. The staging would be weird. If you had a song that was bouncing left and right, it would just be odd. And EQing it and all that would just be strange. So my workaround from that was I went ahead and I have to pull it out still, the Y splits, because I ran a single into a double because I used to use one channel, channel 6, mono signal. I ran into a double, so now I have 9 and 10 going into channels 1 and 2 of the 4-channel amp, but I've now bridged it. So I have the center channel bridged, and now I have channel 9 set as front left, channel 10 front right, so I'm getting the blend to the center. And now everything works fine. But again, this is all things that were supposed to work. I should not have to spend all this extra time finding workarounds for a product that costs $400. And that is where my problem lies with it. This took so much extra time, and on top of that, the company didn't have the answers. So I feel that they don't really have an R&D. I feel that they definitely don't have all the information on the Bronco. But if I go to PAC, which the PAC Amp Pro is what I use, tried and true. But if I go to the PAC website, which I did, and I laminated and printed off their A2B2 Bronco, right on page 1, on most Ford models, some of the vehicle speakers will be connected to the radio module in addition to the external amplifier. These speakers will also stop working when the factory amplifier is disconnected and will need to be powered by an aftermarket amplifier. See speaker connections on page 3 for vehicle-specific information. And then when you go to page 3, wouldn't you know, they show the 2 different plugs. You know, the one that I had to shave on this one to make it fit, and they didn't know why. Well, they know because they have them right there. They also provide you with the plug for the back and the plug for the front. Comes with the Amp Pro, the bypass and everything, so everything you need. That's where the anger comes from. So it's not as if the information wasn't out there. It's literally out there with another company, and everything's there. So that's why I was saying I'm gonna go with the PAC Amp Pros from now on. I've had too many issues with the Axxess DSPs. This isn't the first one. I had them on the Hyundai Tucson. I had them on the Harley Davidsons. I had them on, there's a couple other cars. It's been an ongoing problem that it just doesn't seem to be R&D support. So I'm gonna have to just stick with PAC Amp Pros and stay there until they figure out how they're gonna test their vehicles. But I hope this helps somebody out there. And oh, I forgot one other thing. This is the craziest thing. So the bass knob on the Axxess DSPs, it's right there. It's got an orange and black wire. And then on the harnesses of these, there's an orange wire. You're supposed to take the black wire from the bass knob and ground it anywhere. And then you take the orange wire coming off that harness and you tie it together to that orange wire, and that gives you bass. So, pretty simple. The orange wire is not in the harness. It's missing. That was the first problem I ran into. I literally opened the box, was getting everything out, and realized there was no orange pigtail. Called tech support. They didn't believe me. They kind of thought I was crazy. So I went to their website, and if you go onto the Axxess website and look up this product and look up their product pictures, it's missing it in the pictures too. They don't have it there. So if you get one, you have to pin it yourself, which I had to pin mine myself. I had an old steering wheel control interface, an old Axxess steering wheel control interface harness, because it's the same pins. I depinned it, and pinned it. It goes into the pin between, so if anybody needs to know, the yellow wire, and it's like a blue, or like blue with red stripe. The yellow's on the very end. Top row, yellow wires on the very end, blank spot, then the blue wire. It goes right there next to the yellow. I think it was like pin 7, but whatever. But that's where you need to pin to run your bass knob. But the fact that I had to do that, that was the first thing I ran into. And then it just snowballed into all these other things. That's crazy. And when I told them that it wasn't on their website, they were like, what? And then one guy was like, oh, wow. So they have harnesses that were made incorrectly, and then they actually use the incorrect harness for their product photos. So that's where that's at. Not, like I said, I've been using Metra for 30 years, and I've liked the Axxess DSPs. I've just found in the last year or so, something has happened. In the last year, the Axxess DSPs have just started to fail me. And they worked really well a couple years ago. So I'm not sure what's going on. I'm not sure if they, I don't know. But I would love to get it figured out, because the more products available on the market, the better for all of us. But I just can't do this for free anymore. I can't do all the R&D for a company. I can't do it. It's just, I got to get paid for this, or I shouldn't be paying for, you know, the interfaces if I'm going to have to go through all these hoops. So that's what I got for the Bronco. So now I need to go ahead and finish this install. I wanted to leave it apart so I could show some of this stuff. So now I'm going to go ahead and put it all back together, and a customer can come get it, and then I can move on to the next one. And I'm going to take all this information, put it in a binder. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll try to answer them. Like I said, this is mainly geared towards shops and installers. Take it easy.